listening to the Savvy Musician Show with Leah McHenry, and this is your secret weapon for success in the new music industry. This episode was sponsored by the Superfan System Elite program here at Savvy Musician Academy. If you are looking to scale your existing music business and you're looking to get into advanced digital marketing, such as email marketing, funnels, e-commerce, Facebook ads, and more, and you're looking to build a real profitable online music business, book a call with our team at www.callsma.com. We would love to speak with you for about 30 minutes and see how we can help you. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more episodes, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, welcome back to the Savvy Musician Show. I'm your host, Leah McHenry. This is part 2 of a crowdfunding campaign strategy episode. In the first episode, I talked to you all about the strategy behind how I just raised $87,000 in 1 month from just 1,400 backers. And from 2 bundles. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to go back to the first one and just digest it all. There is a ton of information. In this session, I want to talk to you about more behind the scenes of the planning process, since I know so many of you want to know more about that and what was all involved with all of that. So in the past one, we went through how I structured my campaign, why I made some of the decisions I made, what was different about this campaign than the last one, why I chose the platform I did, and some of those more marketing strategies. And this one, we're going to talk about the planning process. So I've got 2 more parts for you. We're going to talk about the actual ways that I planned this campaign, some of the specific tasks I did, some of the strategies, and then we're also going to talk about my husband's observations of how I handled it all with a lot going on. And we were also planning on leaving for Europe and doing a little traveling with my family. So how did I handle it all? What was his perspective as an outsider and somebody not involved in the campaign? All right, so let's get into the planning process. So I want to start off by saying some of you guys might already be familiar with a guy in the marketing world. His name is Jeff Walker. He is the grandfather of online product launching. Some of you are super familiar with him. He's like really famous for launching products online. Some of my students are even in his courses. So what's kind of neat is that his stuff works. It just works for launching anything online. So what I've done is taken some of his principles and figured out exactly how to apply it. And I made my own tweaks for the music business and when I'm personally launching something. So one thing I learned is that launching an EP, launching an album, or a crowdfunding campaign is like launching any other product. It's like launching a book or a film or anything. And the tricky part is that with stuff like music and art, it's not based on need. So it's not like, some kind of a sleeping supplement or something where someone literally, they need to sleep. And if they don't sleep, they're going to die. And so they need your product. This is a lot more based on want and want versus need. And how do we help our fans want it more? And of course, when someone really wants a product, all of a sudden they feel like they need it. So I need that new t-shirt. I need that new pair of shoes. I need that new car. People will interchange the words based on how much they want it. We actually end up exchanging the words for need. So with something like music and art, I always found that it's kind of awkward and tricky because nobody needs music. No one's going to die if they don't buy this album, but they might want it. So how can I play on that and help them to want it more? And so that's the psychology I'm always thinking through when I put together some kind of campaign or some kind of launch. For this planning process, I really wanted to tell you about there's 5 calendars and 5 phases. Now, that's actually not what Jeff Walker teaches. I think in his stuff, he's got 4, but I've added my own extra phase. And I also use 5 specific calendars. And these are things that I've just personally made up. These are things that I've tested and they work for me. So feel free to kind of use these. So let's talk about the 5 phases that I, first of all, plan for when putting any of this together. And that is, there is a pre-launch phase. All right, so that's where we are telling our fans that something is coming up big, and we can tell them specifically what it is. We can even tell them, the day of the launch. In this instance, I'm going to use an album launch, because that's actually coming up for me in a few weeks. So in my pre-launch phase, I'm telling my fans, hey, here's the launch date. This is coming up. Expect some emails from me. Expect to hear from me a lot. I'm going to get my fans and my street team kind of jazzed up and ready to go and get everybody excited. And so this is the time where we're starting to ramp up a bit of a buzz. And then there's a pre-launch phase. This is phase number 2. Pre-launch. Now, this is where stuff is actually starting to happen. In this pre-launch phase, say you're launching an album, this is where I'm actually going to be launching a single or 2. This is where I'm going to launch my music video or a lyric video or something like that, and it's really going to ramp up the buzz. Now there's some real tangible assets that you can use to grab attention and keep that attention and even have them pre-order things, right? So in this phase, you might even open up pre-ordering in iTunes and on your website and other places. So pre-launch phase is phase 2. Phase 3 is your launch day. And phase 3 is only one day long because you only have one major launch day. And that day, there's all kinds of crazy things happening. I mean, you're pushing buttons, launching things, making sure that your store is ready to take orders. There's a whole lot of chaos and amazing things happening that day. Very, very exciting day. Now, the phase I've added after that is phase 4, which I call the momentum phase. I don't even call it a post-launch phase because if I'm launching an album, and say I launch at the beginning of the month, that whole month is like a launch month for me. I am not satisfied with having a launch day. I'm having a launch month and maybe a launch quarter where I'm really pushing my album and the bundles and these special things for the entire quarter. So I'm calling phase 4 the momentum phase. This is where I'm really going to get this thing off the ground. Launch day was fun and the pre-launch was fun and that all led up to this point, but the momentum phase is really where my rocket is taking off the ground and I'm using up all this rocket fuel and we are getting off the ground. The momentum phase is where I think where you can make most of your money. I think you can make a ton of money in the momentum phase, especially because it's new, it's still exciting. People are telling their friends about it, and it's just something fresh for your fans and super fans to hear. It's also where you can gather a ton of new traffic, new fans who were previously what we would call a cold audience, where they'd never heard of you before, but because there's such a buzz happening, they are latching on your music and hearing it for the first time, getting excited, and even buying the day that they hear it. So this is a very exciting phase. Phase number 5 would be post-launch. Now that would be after things kind of died down a little bit, and now I'm going into more of an evergreen scenario, and evergreen meaning where I have something running continuously. I'm not in launch mode anymore, but I'm still every single day launching my music, so-called launching, to brand new people, maybe cold audience every single day. And I'm getting them into my ecosystem, into my email list. They're in my Facebook group. I'm getting them to follow me on social. I've got them in Messenger. I've got them in different places in my ecosystem. So in that post-launch phase, that's phase number 5, I am basically going to be using this momentum I've built to really expand my empire. Okay, so I'm going to be still just continuing with selling my stuff, my previous albums. I'll probably create new bundles based off of that, where I'm, if say you have 4 or 5 albums, I would put them all together and see if you can sell that as a higher priced bundle to your fans and cold audience. So that is basically the 5 phases. And the post-launch continues forever. I should add that. The post-launch is forever. So I'm always in an evergreen launch where I'm launching my new music or my old music to new people. So your music is always brand new to new people who've never heard it before. So that's the exciting part. So in that case, you can technically launch old music to anybody and it's fresh. So they are excited and you're always launching your music. That just never stops. All right, now I want to talk about the other very crucial thing I did to plan this $87,000 campaign and what I'm planning right now for my album launch. So I launched the campaign it was kind of a launch campaign, a pre-order campaign, and now I'm preparing to launch my actual album, and this is what I'm using. I am using 5 different calendars. All right, 5 different calendars. You might be like, what are you talking about? Why do you need 5 calendars? And really, these are all things that end up going on one calendar eventually, but it does look a little crazy. So I start out kind of separating them, and this is how I just kind of go through the process and plan them out phase by phase. So the first calendar is the phase calendar. So I literally just use like a Google Sheet, and you just use like a calendar within Google Sheets. And I just start blocking out these phases, and I start out with, what's my launch day? And then I work backwards. Okay, so if my launch day is here, how long do I want my pre-launch to be? And how long do I want my pre-launch to be? Okay, so I'll work backwards from there usually. And maybe my pre-launch is going to be 2 or 3 weeks. And my pre-launch is maybe only 1 week because I only need a short amount of time to let people know about things. And then after that, I'm going to figure out how long is my momentum phase going to be. Is it going to be to the end of the month? Is it going to be 2 months? How long am I going to consider that my momentum phase from really pushing sales? And then after that is post-launch. And I just mark that off in the calendar that anything after this point is post-launch. And personally, I like to color code everything because I'm a visionary. I'm really not a data person. So when you hear me talking about spreadsheets and stuff, know that I kind of do it kicking and screaming. But I do it because it helps me make more money. It helps me be more organized. And so I use stuff like color coding because it helps my brain actually compute what I'm doing, and it helps me just wrap my brain around all of these details. So after my phase calendar, I have an asset calendar. And my asset calendar is where I'm looking at my phases. I'm going, hey, what assets do I have that I'm going to be using to generate either income or attention or buzz? Okay, so that would be like, what are the singles I have? What are the lyric videos I have? What are the music videos I have? What are the assets I have that I can use during these phases? And then I just start placing them where they make sense to go during the phases. And so sometimes you got to work with them at the same time to figure out how long you want a phase to be. So if you have 2 singles or 3 singles or just 1, then you kind of determine the length of time you're going to be doing this. All right, so that's my asset calendar. And next I have an email calendar. I actually map out now according to my launch date, according to my phases, and according to the assets I have, what are all the emails I'm going to send out. So I'm going to want to let my fans know about that. And from there, I can go into the 4th calendar, which is my social media calendar. All right, from there I can go, okay, so these are the dates that the big things are happening. This is when the single's dropping, so I'm going to send an email on that day. So clearly I also need to do social posts on that day. So I start mapping this out. So does this start to make sense to you where you're kind of filling in the gaps and filling in the holes of where things would go? I hope so. I hope this is kind of getting your wheels turning about how you would do this. And so I start really placing the major social media I call pillar content. So it's like stuff that absolutely has happened. It's absolutely pre-planned, because I like to do a mix of pre-planned content and spontaneous content, especially during something like a crowdfunding campaign where you don't really know how things are going to go. And it's nice to use people's feedback. It's nice to just consider different things that are happening and just give people your raw response as it's happening. So for both emails, and I'll say I do that with both email and social media. So for emails, I also plan the emails out ahead of time. And then like during a crowdfunding campaign, I also like to give myself permission to be totally spontaneous and write spontaneous emails in between the planned ones. So I just kind of map out where I think those are going to go. And then lastly, I have an advertising calendar. So clearly you can see there's a pattern going here that when there's something major launching, like a pillar piece of content or a single or something, there's multiple things happening on those days. There's emails being sent, there's social media posts going out, and then I also have ads going out. And so when you get into the more advanced digital marketing, you can do things like retargeting people who visited a page but didn't buy. I can create custom audiences of people who watched my crowdfunding video and didn't buy, or I just want to show it to them to generate more buzz. There's just so much you can do with advanced digital marketing. And that's why I love being a musician today. That's why I love this, because there's just no excuse to not succeed. All right, so those are the 5 calendars I use: the phase calendar, the asset calendar, my email calendar, my social media calendar, and my advertising calendar. I literally map out the whole thing, start to finish, within all those phases. All right, so that is huge. And again, for tools, I am using things like Google Sheets, and I also am using Airtable. It's like Excel, except on crack or on steroids, whichever you prefer. So it's pretty awesome. And I'm doing all my planning in Airtable these days, as I love that tool. It's such a great tool. All right, so that is how I basically plan it out. And as far as more details with planning out merchandise and stuff, we always make sure that we're mathematically pricing out everything before we decide on it. So we come up with our ideas. So it's like, okay, what do we want to include? Okay, and so it's like, all right, let's do, this special wooden box, and how much does that cost? Let's check with our vendor, how much is that box going to cost to make? And are there any discounts if we order in bulk? So that helps us determine things like the number that we want to offer. And then from there we go, okay, now that's what it would cost us plus shipping. So you also want to ask yourself, how much is it going to cost for the item plus the shipping? And then you can kind of look at, all right, now what can I charge to make sure that I'm profitable and make sure there's enough margin there that's actually going to be worth it to provide this and make this available. And from there, you're going to go, hey, will somebody actually pay this? All right, so there's cost to you, there's profit margin, and then you got to look at, is this a price point where someone is willing to buy it? Okay, and now there's some crazy things you can do. Like you could charge astronomical prices for, signed underwear, or who knows what you want to sell on eBay or whatever. There's a lot of crazy things that people pay bizarre prices for. So just keep that in mind. But you do want to be kind of reasonable, kind of competitive a little bit. But really important, you need to make sure you have profit margin, or else there's no point in doing these kind of launches. So we really just mathematically put it all together, make sure we're at least probably I want like a 40 to 50% profit margin when I'm doing something like a crowdfunding campaign specifically. For regular launches, in general, I'll just say with like e-commerce stores, if you're selling your stuff on Shopify or anything like that, Bandcamp, I think it's a safe thing to say you want to at least have a 30% profit margin in your music business. That's a great number to shoot for. If you can be 30% profit, that's fantastic. So just as a general rule of thumb, that's good. If you can get better than that, do it, as long as your fans are actually willing to pay that. So just as something for you to go off of. Okay, so we're going to move into the last part of this, which was my husband Steve's observation about the campaign, how it all went, and how I handled it all. He's very involved here at Savvy Musician Academy. He's kind of behind the scenes guy. He's in the operations. He's helping manage like our team and the different things going on. He was not at all involved in my campaign. And so he got to kind of see as an outsider what all was involved with that and how I handled it. So from his perspective, he said that there was a lot of work that went into the pre-planning. Like he saw me really working hard on this for months ahead of time. And so mostly when I say working really hard, it was mostly like a weekly team meeting that I had with my assistant. So I have a full-time assistant helping me in my music business, just answering emails, answering fan mail, customer service type stuff, certain marketing activities that are repetitive and things like that. He's just really good at. So him and I have a weekly meeting where we discuss the goals of my music business. Are we moving ahead? Let's talk about stats. And so during that team meeting, as it came closer, about 3 months out, we really started getting serious about this. So we started putting together, what are the bundles we wanted? We started doing the math. We started talking to the different vendors and suppliers that we have that are making some things. So we looked into t-shirts, and we just created a lot of checklists, which were helpful. So like at the time we were using like Basecamp, which is just a project manager. You can use things like Asana. There's Trello. There's Slack is great, but that's more of a chat app. It's not so much a project management app. So, it doesn't matter what platform you're using as long as you have somewhere to help you keep track of the to-dos. And so we really just mapped out what are all the like the granular little tasks. So, all right, I got to get a t-shirt design done. I need, the cover art for my album to be done. Like we had every little thing on a to-do list. And then we also try to give them deadlines too. So I think that's an important thing when you're planning, like especially months in advance. Like I believe that the longer runway you give yourself, the more successful you'll be. So 6 months out, I think, is a fantastic time to start planning it all. Okay, all right, what do we need done? Okay, we got to get this album mixed and mastered. All right, we got to get the booklet done. We got to get the album cover done. Is all that Is all that happening? Is it in the works? I'm now using something called Airtable. Like I said, it was kind of like an Excel sheet. And one thing I have in there is like a column that just says the status. Is the task not started yet? Is it in progress, or is it completed? So I kind of have like red, green, yellow going on for, not started, started, or completed. And that way now I can just keep track of like the status of things, rather than, especially when you're working with a virtual assistant, always wondering, hey, is this thing done yet? And for me, I'll like be awake at night thinking about these things if I don't know that they're checked off or something. So I love having a status update. So again, the tool isn't important. It just pick a platform where you're going to be accountable, and anybody, bandmates you're working with, will be accountable. So make sure that for every task you give an owner to. So if you and your band are working on something, make sure so-and-so owns this job, this task. They are the owner of that job, and they are the one responsible seeing it through to completion on this date. So give it a date, give it an owner, give it a deadline, and be organized like that. And then you will have so much less stress, less, conflict, and things will run really smooth. So we really went through the details on all of that stuff, all the way through to, all right, when are we launching this thing? Here's the date where I need to fill out the whole story. We need the photos for the bundles. We want graphics, all of this stuff we had deadlines for. So really, really important part of the planning phase. I think those to-do lists, giving owners and deadlines, is one of the most important things you could do. And then I think the calendar strategy is also an amazing strategy to really keep you on track and keep you really focused and just totally maximize your profit. All right, so that's something that Steve observed, and he said that it was a lot of details and work, and without planning ahead, it would have been a flop. So this is my husband's observation, that he just knows it would have been a flop if I hadn't have gone to the trouble of those little details, those nuances, those to-do lists, those tasks. That's actually what made it successful. Not even the music yet, because nobody's even heard the music. They haven't heard it yet. I haven't even released a single yet. So it's the planning that went into it that made it successful, not just, the album cover or something. He also took note that I took the time to listen to my audience, and by only offering 1 or 2 main bundles, that was huge. There was so much less confusion for my audience. They didn't have to go, I don't know, do I want this thing, do I want this $5 thing or this $10 thing? I don't know. I just gave them an option of like yes or no, $65 bundle or $250. Now, what works for my audience might not work for your audience. So I don't think by any means that you should copy everything I've done. And I hope you wouldn't. I hope people listening to this aren't going to like copy and paste everything I did on my album campaign and plagiarize or something. I don't think anybody would. But just to say, what works for my audience, price points, what they want in the bundles, isn't necessarily going to fly with your audience. So you need to really ask them. And that's something I'm a huge believer in, is surveying your fans all the time. Ask them what would be like the ultimate bundle for you, and survey them. Use SurveyMonkey, use Google Forms, use different tools you have available, and email them. You can also do polls and stuff if you have a Facebook group or even on your page. So poll your audience and ask what they want. That's been a huge part of my success, is listening to my fans instead of guessing. I don't like guessing. There's too much risk in guessing. Why guess when you can ask? That's my saying. All right. And he said, pick a platform with a clean and simple customer experience. And this is huge too, is what is the checkout process like when they go through, whether you're launching something on your website or they're launching something on a crowdfunding platform? What's the checkout process like? Is it simple? Is it clean? And most important, is it mobile friendly? And I don't mean mobile friendly like as in the website kind of resizes a bit. I mean it's mobile optimized, meaning it's actually, things actually move around and completely resize. So when I say resize, I don't mean like the website shrinks and then you have to zoom in to read something. That's what I don't mean. What I mean by mobile optimized is that things actually move around, and like the blocks, the formatting of the website actually moves around to suit that mobile device. So that's really, really important, and people don't even think about that. So make sure before you choose a platform, like for crowdfunding or even your website, that you check out other websites, other crowdfunding campaigns that are on that platform you're thinking of, and go through a checkout process. buy something for $1 or $10 and ask yourself, was this easy? Was it simple? Was it annoying? Was there anything that annoyed me about this process? Because I can guarantee you, if it was annoying for them, for you, I'll say that, I can guarantee that if it was annoying for you, you will lose customers, you will lose fans, and they won't check out. So really important thing to go through the process and observe your own thoughts and behavior before making a decision. And then lastly, his observation was that delegating things that others can do just as well or better to free you up mentally to do the most important tasks is really vital. So that's where I had my assistant come in. And maybe you don't have a virtual assistant, but you have other bandmates, you have a spouse, you have a friend that can help you do things. If you have someone who's very administrative, kind of a brain, and that's not you, enlist their help. Like, get them to help you with this. Work out something, barter, do what you got to do, because there are things. So like when it comes to just like order fulfillment and stuff, my brain gets lost in that stuff. So that's where I have, somebody like Peter, my virtual assistant, coming in there, help me doing order fulfillment, downloading the CSVs, making sure all the information is correct. And if someone wants to change their address, he's contacting them and emailing them back, making sure they're having an amazing experience. So make sure that you delegate whenever possible so that you can do the things that only you can do. And that's you living in your genius zone. Okay, last thing he said is that because of all of this, reaching the goal within 8 days of launching, and there's a lot less stress than the previous 2 times I've launched something. What he's saying is that because of all this planning, because of all these details, because I was so meticulous about it, we were able to reach the goal of $50,000 within 8 days. Just over a week, $50,000 just over a week of launching, and I wasn't nearly as stressed out. I'm glad that he was able to perceive that, and it all was because of the planning part of this. There is a ton of more detail and granular stuff that I actually get into in our elite mentorship program, and this program is really heavy duty. I gotta tell you, it's a lot of work and it's really heavy duty because we go deep into digital marketing. We go into funnels, we go into the Facebook pixel, we go into advertising, we go into website makeovers, we go into branding continuity, we go into a lot of stuff where I'm telling you, if you come out the other end of this, there's no reason why you couldn't build a 6 or even 7-figure business selling anything. I don't care if it's shoes or socks or pillows or anything or your music. This is what business is made of. So if that's something that you're looking and trying to accomplish, I would love to help you and be your mentor. The way for you to see if that would be something that would fit for you is to call our team and actually talk to us on the phone. So you can book a call for a free consultation at callsma.com. That's callsma.com. And we'll actually speak with you on the phone for at least 30 minutes and just help you get clear on your goals and help you just discover if this is the right program that can help get you there. So I encourage you to do that. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening in. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you actually get updates when we go live. Talk to you later.
Today's episode was sponsored by Savvy Musician Academy, the go-to online marketing resource for thousands of independent musicians. To learn about how SMA can benefit you in your music goals wherever you are at, go to savvymusicianacademy.com and take the free introductory class. And hey, if you benefited from what you heard today, subscribe to the show and leave us a review. That's what helps us in our rankings and helps us get the word out to musicians who need to be empowered. It means a lot that you would do that. Thank you so much. Until next time, stay savvy.